Hi, it's Tanya from My Forking Life, and today we're in the kitchen and we're making your favorite teriyaki salmon. Now we're gonna make that salmon on the stove top. First, we're going to crisp that salmon up in a skillet, and then we're gonna cover it in a delicious teriyaki glaze. Now, this recipe is a quick weeknight meal, and I like to use, ingredients you probably already have in your pantry. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. First, what I've done is I've prepared all my ingredients and got them ready because this goes quickly. So I've got here some salmon that I've cut into fillets already, checked in it to make sure there were no bones, and I've got my other ingredients that I'm going to use to create the glaze once I cook that salmon. So of course I've got salt and pepper, I've also got some brown sugar, soy sauce, garlic powder, ginger powder, rice vinegar, chicken broth, and I've got a green onion and sesame seed for garnish, as well as cornstarch and water to thicken up that sauce. All right, so the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm going to set a large skillet. This is about 12 inches over medium-high heat. And we wanna make sure our pan gets hot before we add our oil, but we don't want it to get too hot because we don't want that oil to be smoking. So I'm adding about 1 tablespoon of oil, olive oil, to this pot, not extra virgin olive oil, just regular olive oil. And I'm gonna add my salmon skin side down. Now I'm gonna let this salmon cook for about 4 minutes on each side. How long it cooks is gonna depend on the thickness of your fillets, but yeah, make sure you start skin side down, and like I said, over medium-high heat. Now, one thing we should have done beforehand, but we could do it now, is season the salmon with a little bit of salt and pepper. My bad. But that's fine since we are skin side down. You can still go ahead and season that a little bit. Another thing I forgot to mention, but was also very important, you want to make sure that your salmon is dry before you add it to the skillet, or you'll get a whole bunch of pops. Like pop, 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 pop. All right, so I'm not sure if you can see this, but the salmon is already starting to get really crispy on the bottom. And you can start to see where it's starting to get a little bit white. So I'm going to go ahead and see if I can flip some of these pieces. If your skin is stuck to the bottom, then it's not ready to flip. These are not ready to flip. That skin should be removed easily from the skillet. Now before I flip it, one thing I'm going to do is give that salmon a little bit of coat with that oil. I learned this in masterclass by watching Chef Thomas Keller. Basically what you want to do is just kind of give that salmon a head start before you give it a flip. And now I'm going to go ahead and give them a flip. Ooh, girl. And I'm going to let these cook on the other side for about 3 to 4 minutes. All right, so I believe my salmon is done. So I'm going to go ahead and take these off. So you can see what it looks like. You see, it's got that nice crisp. Oh, perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and, as you can see, I removed the salmon pieces, and just so you get a better idea of how it should look. So now you see, So this is exactly how your salmon pieces should look at this point. You'll want to go ahead and turn down the heat on this so we can create our sauce in the pan. You can see I have some little bits still stuck. We'll go ahead and get that out. So now we're going to add our sauce ingredients to the pot since we've lowered our heat. So we're going to go ahead and add our soy sauce. And I'm going to whisk this in. As well as our chicken broth, our rice wine vinegar, our brown sugar, sprinkle that in there, as well as our garlic powder and ginger. Just give that a quick whisk. And we're going to let that simmer for about 1 to 2 minutes. All right, and our last step for this dish is we're going to make a cornstarch slurry to kind of get that glaze to thicken up. As you can see, it's really thin right now. We just want to thicken it up just a little bit. So I'm going to add about half a tablespoon of cornstarch and a tablespoon of water to a separate dish. Go ahead and whisk that real quick to make sure that is combined before I add it to the skillet. It's good. And we'll make sure we're whisking before we add this in here. And I'm just gonna let this whisk for an additional, a minute or two until it thickens up to the glazed consistency that I want. See, that glaze is now thickening up just a little bit more. I'm going to go ahead and turn off my heat now because this has gotten to the consistency that I want. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to return these salmon fillets to the skillet. Again, look how pretty these are. It's really the crisp for me, like that, that crisp along with this glaze, everything. Add that right back to it. Bum, bum, bum. And then I'll just top this with a little bit of that glaze. And then we're going to do some finishing touches to this dish. So for me, that's just sprinkling on some sesame seeds as well as some green onions. Chopped green onion. And we're just using the green part of that green onion just for garnish and, a little bit of flavor. And that's it. You've got delicious teriyaki salmon. And this is literally less than 20 minutes after you've gotten everything prepped and together. So I'm going to grab a piece of this salmon. Oh, fun fact, if you're wondering why I left the skin on, it helps keep the salmon moist. At least that's what I hear. But I don't eat the skin, but I don't worry about peeling it off. I'm just going to add some more glaze to that just because. All right. I want you to see how flaky this salmon is. Taste test. That salmon is perfectly cooked, and I got that nice crisp on the top covered with that sweet teriyaki sauce. This is so good. All right, until next time.